And if you are looking for longevity and you're looking for real wealth and growth in your portfolio and your asset worth, you're going to want to target markets that are steady. And that, like, you're not going to see Alabama appreciate 40% in a year. It's just not going to happen. You might see that, like you said, with a California purchase, but you're not ever going to see that with Alabama. But what you are going to see is consistent 2 to 3%. You're not going to see the drastic dips when the market does take a turn, like you've seen in a lot of other markets over the last couple of years, and that they have been hurting the markets that just saw this just huge boom. Alabama saw a small one, but we have not seen a dip. We have not seen a step back. And so that's kind of what you want. You want that slow, steady, but it is not a get-rich-quick scheme. And if somebody is out there telling you that, hey, you can buy this property right now and not do anything to it and sit on it for 2 years and then turn around and sell it at a profit, don't do it.
Welcome back to the Massive Passive Cash Flow Podcast. I'm Gary Wilson, your host. I'm so glad to have you back on the show listening or watching. If you're one of those watching it in recorded mode on YouTube or Facebook, that's great. We have an excellent guest today, Lindsay Davis from wonderful near Birmingham, Alabama. I've been down there many times, and I've mentioned this before, Lindsay, but for everybody listening, if you haven't figured it out yet, yes, Alabama is an excellent place to invest. It's one of the last places in what we call the Smile, the coastal states, that hasn't been overrun with a myriad of investors yet. And I've had people tell me, Gary, stop telling people that. We want to keep it a secret. But if I kept it a secret, I wouldn't be doing my job. So South Carolina is another one. South Carolina is not as fast moving as Alabama. I mean, it's just a slower state, but it's still like undiscovered, and Arkansas too. But Alabama, guys, I'm telling you, man, it's the secret's been out for a little bit, but there are so many towns there. Like I just mentioned, when Lindsay, not that little anymore, but Hoover, maybe an hour outside of Birmingham. Madison's maybe 45 minutes outside of Huntsville. These are great, secondary and tertiary towns for you to invest in. And if you don't want to invest directly, you're not sure about that, call Lindsay. So Lindsay, let's turn it over to you. First off, thank you for joining us. I know how busy you are, and I feel like we're very blessed to have you on the podcast today.
Well, Gary, thank you so much for having me on. I'm really excited to be here, and you set up Alabama absolutely perfectly. A lot of times Alabama is overlooked, like South Carolina, like Arkansas. They're great markets to invest in if you're interested in turnkey real estate or rental properties, real estate in general. So, no, I appreciate the setup. Alabama is perfect.
Well, it's easy because I've been there a number of times, and one of my students was in Birmingham. And, I also I just went through there a few months ago and stopped and had dinner with her. I have a cousin that's northeast up in sort of Tennessee, Georgia border. And I was on the way to Florida. I thought, well, I'll just take a detour. And always loved it there. The Mercedes plant is out, I think, west of Birmingham. They had a great little museum. It's just an awesome place. You've got mountains in the northeast, and you've got the coast in the south. And it's growing like crazy. 2 awesome universities. I mean, holy cow, football heaven, So
yes, unfortunately, if you do decide to reside here in Alabama, you do have to be a college football fan. So that's just kind of one of the requirements, I think, before you can actually cross over into Alabama. But no, you're absolutely right in that it checks so many of the boxes when you're evaluating what markets to even investigate. It is affordable. It's one of the most affordable states. If you want to look at population growth, it's been consistently growing over the last 2 to 3 decades. It's done a really great job at bringing a very high-end blue-collar jobs like your auto manufacturing, NASA, FBI, Facebook data centers. All of that is hitting the North Alabama. Huntsville is consistently on best places to live, fastest growing cities. It's checking all of those things. And then on top of that, if you're looking at it from an investment standpoint, you've got extremely low property taxes. We are the second lowest state in the country for property taxes. And then you're also looking at landlord friendliness. So if you are interested in investing in rental properties, you definitely want to evaluate the local and statewide regulations and what their laws do to protect home ownership. And Alabama is an extremely landlord friendly state. So that is another huge check mark in Alabama's corner.
Absolutely. You touched on a couple critical things here. And I apologize to all my South Carolina family who's going to hear this. South Carolina property taxes are not that friendly. They're not horrible. They're way better than the Northeast. But people will invest right over the state line in North Carolina because there's no property taxes. And you're also right, Alabama, they do still, owners still have ownership rights, whereas in a lot of other states, and I'll just blurt it out there, California, New York, Illinois, New Jersey, they're just really tough on business owners, particularly, property owners. It's gone too far and everybody knows it. And that's why they're coming to Alabama. So if you don't mind, I want to go back down memory lane. So what got you into real estate? Was it like one of your parents were doing it, or what was the inspiration for you getting into this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So just kind of taking a step back of what Spartan does, and kind of what we offer, and then I can kind of dive into a little bit on how I got started. But so Spartan Invest, we are a full service turnkey company. So like you said, we're in Alabama, we're also in Georgia and in Tennessee, and essentially what we do is we allow investors the ability to invest remotely into these key markets without doing any of the work. And that's really kind of our why, is that we want to create that mailbox money for investors that are living in California, Colorado, New York. And that's where most of our investors reside, in areas where it just doesn't make sense to purchase rental property. There's just no cash flow. You're in a negative return. You're underwater in the property. So we're out there purchasing the properties, renovating them, and then we have our property management company that will continue to manage them for the investors. So essentially, those wanting to invest or pick out a property just come to us. We've already done all of the legwork on the purchasing, the renovation. We're doing new roofs, HVAC. I can go on and on about all of the nitty gritty on what we're doing on the turnkey side, and then we handle everything. We get a tenant in there. We collect the rent. If they have to go into eviction, we handle that process. If they have to move out, we're handling the maintenance, the move outs. We do absolutely everything. So really, you just have to sit back and collect the money. And so that's kind of our companies as, in a nutshell, and that's what we provide, and that's what we want. Now, how we actually got started, and it's been something that wasn't really in the family business or anything like that. I did actually get I would say toe dip into real estate or rental property investing when I was in college, but it was a terrible experience. I purchased a property in order to, because I'm originally from Georgia, so I purchased a property in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and then rented out the rooms so I could declare in-state residency, because out-of-state tuition was extremely high. Yeah. And so I was able to get in-state, and then I was also able to have my rent paid for by the people that I was renting the rooms out. So I was essentially living kind of rent-free in that property, while also getting residency and getting a lower tuition. Now, a 19, 20, 21-year-old in college also having to be a landlord to roommates was terrible. It was a really rough experience, just because, you don't know what you don't know, and it was a learning experience. But even still, the ability the way that I was able to live rent free and rent out those rooms, and it's still all of the same principles have carried on. But when we started Spartan Invest, and it actually started as more of flipping. It was 2010, and properties were being foreclosed. We flipped a couple of properties just on the side, just as not really fun, but like, hey, this property is pretty cheap and we have some capital. Let's try this. And so after kind of seeing the numbers on what we could potentially make, decided, hey, you know what, let's go all in. Left our corporate job. And it was a great company, but still decided to go head first into the entrepreneur lane, I guess, is however you want to say it. And, early 20s, didn't have kids yet. So, hey, why not try it? Now, the market is not what it is today. And so the properties that we were purchasing and we were renovating them, we were staging them, we're doing all the HGTV, making them as attractive as possible. They just still weren't moving as quickly. And if you are starting your own business and you're not selling any properties, there are months where you just don't get paid. And so kind of in a panic, went out and purchased several rental properties. Didn't do a ton of renovation to them, but in managing those rental properties, we were able to pay ourselves. We were able to keep the power on. We were able to cover the majority of our overhead for slower months that we were seeing some of our flipped properties sit on the market. And so this is, 2010, 2011. And that's really when the light bulb hit, was that we have something special in Alabama and that these numbers are fantastic. The returns that we were able to generate, the cash flow we were seeing from just our very small portfolio that we purchased, this was something. This is what we needed to sell. This was the value that we saw in our market and in real estate just in general. Now, again, there's nothing wrong with the BRRRR methods or anything like that. Investing in real estate can be extremely lucrative no matter what avenue you choose to go down. However, for us, we felt like this was just really where we saw true value and what we could turn around and sell to investors. So in 2013, we made a very hard shift, stopped doing flips, and went all in on the turnkey market. And the rest, as they say, is history. We're selling almost 300 turnkey properties and new construction. We also started a new construction company in 2020. We're doing about 300 turnkey and new construction homes a year. We have almost 2,200 doors under management in 3 states. And so it's been a absolutely crazy ride, but still offering like I said, the value that we see in our markets and giving that to investors.
Yeah. Well, you touch on so many important things there. One of the biggest, I don't know if this should call it a lesson, but more of an evolution. A lot of us investors did start off, and I was the same way. I started off buying properties that were undervalued and had deferred maintenance. So the way I created value was, upgrading, improving, things like that, and then, of course, charging more rent. So the BRRRR, right? Buy, remodel, rent, refinance. And I did that over and over again, and I built up quite a portfolio. But after a while, I started realizing there's more to money than just increasing the amount of money. It's how fast you can go. So we call that velocity. In the world of investing, it's called velocity. How fast you're going to make the money, how fast you turn your money around, how fast you get your principal back, and all that. So when you buy the turnkey properties that are already up and running and producing, you're making more cash flow sooner in the life cycle than you would if you did the BRRRR method. So banks like it. I mean, I used to be a banker, by the way. So I've done a lot of creative purchasing. I've written an entire book on creative purchasing techniques. But the reality is some of the cheapest money you ever will get will be from, commercial lenders. You just have to strike the right. You can negotiate with them just like you negotiate with an owner. I'll say, look, I don't want to reset every 5 years, and I don't want just a 15-year. I want a 20-year term fixed rate, and they'll do it. You just have to ask for it. But you always have to run the numbers. In any case, back to the evolution is, so for those of you out there listening right now, and you're probably thinking, gee, that's exactly where I'm thinking, Gary. It's where I want to go. I'm tired of all the old crappy stuff. Well, I'm here to tell you, what Lindsay's doing, providing turnkey for you, is even a better step, because let's face it, as you live and you learn and you earn, you start to realize the value of your time becomes more than the value of your money. So if you can tie in with a good group of people like Lindsay, and they're investing in think about it, Georgia, Tennessee, and Alabama. You can't get a better cash flow than that. I'm telling you that the cost basis versus cash flow, you're never going to get that in New York. All right. You're not going to get it in California either. Good luck with that. But down here, I mean, I know people in California, Lindsay, that have bought with negative cash flow. Now, granted, they're playing the capital appreciation game. That's a gamble. Does it work most of the time? Well, parts of California, yes. But the thing is, I like the tortoise not there because it's steady,
Yeah.
and that money just shows up every single month. But so in any case, I want to talk about geography a little bit. Do you ever venture out beyond Tennessee and Georgia? Is it tempting? Have you looked at other markets, or do you like staying in that tri-state area? Because I know for me, I can drive to anywhere, to and from any place in those three states in less than a day if I had to.
Right.
So,
So markets, particularly kind of outside of those three states, is that what you're asking as far as if we're looking at? Absolutely. There are a few that we are interested in and kind of diving into. There's a couple of more in our states that we want to hit. There's a couple of other markets that we want to enter into on Georgia, because right now we're in the north. Our Chattanooga market on the Tennessee side services the North Georgia. We would eventually like to move over into Knoxville, very similar market to Tuscaloosa, but in the Southeast in general, there are several markets that are very similar to Huntsville and to Birmingham that have have the landlord friendliness. They have population growth. They are emerging markets. They have diverse job markets where you have a little bit of healthcare and retail, and services and stuff like that. That's really important to creating a stable local economy, and those are the type of markets that we want to target. So yeah, there's several markets that we are interested in and we're looking at, but we definitely want to make sure that we are in every place in our current markets that we want to be. And that's kind of the first primary target, is to continue to expand into Georgia and Tennessee before we look at potentially Kentucky. I'm a very big fan of the Lexington area in Kentucky. So there's a lot of other markets out there that check that box.
Yeah, I like Kentucky too. Actually, it's interesting because it's obviously north of Tennessee, and it's connected to Indiana and Ohio. It just well, even on the Virginia on the eastern side, but such a diverse state. In Lexington, Louisville, there's Elizabethtown that's sort of south of Louisville, but there's a lot of. It's a big state. People don't realize that it's a beautiful state too. And the same as just like Alabama, the pricing there is so much more favorable than some of the surrounding states.
Right.
So, well, let me ask you this: we talked about what you're doing, where you're doing it, how. I want to talk a little bit about how you're doing it. I know you've got your team. Actually, let's do that. Before we get into, I want to bust a few myths here. But before we do that. Let's talk about how you logistically accomplish what you accomplish. So, who do you bring in as far as what I call team members? They might not be employees; they just might be strategic partners in different areas to help you, carry out the roles that you're playing. Hey there, did you know you can join a free real estate mastermind session every Monday night? It's called Monday Night Live, and it kicks off at 7 p.m. Eastern. I'm Gary Wilson, and every week I host this live class, joined by investor agents from across the country and around the world. And here's the best part: no selling, no recruiting, just pure, actionable real estate education. Every Monday, we cover everything from the basics to advanced strategies. We even bring in expert guests once or twice a month. Topics like how to buy property using crypto, how AI is reshaping the real estate landscape, what the metaverse and blockchain mean for real estate deals today. Whether you're a new investor or a seasoned pro, you'll walk away with real value, and you'll have the chance to ask questions live, connect with others, and expand your network. Sound good? Then head over to realestatewithgarywilson.com. Click the Resources tab, select Monday Night Live, and you'll find recent replays plus a full schedule. You can register for any upcoming session, even weeks in advance. And if you're watching this on social media, just check the video description for the direct registration link. I'll see you Monday night. Bring your questions, your notepad, and your drive to grow. I look forward to connecting with you.
So everyone that is on our team that is purchasing properties and evaluating properties that a end client would purchase is a Spartan Invest employee. We all are in-house, and that's kind of something that's a really big appeal that we have, is that we are the boots on the ground. We are not basically outsourcing any of that. We are all here now. We have different offices. We have an office in Tennessee. We have one in Montgomery. We have one in Huntsville, and then we are headquartered in downtown Birmingham. But our team is the boots on the ground. So I have an acquisition team that they are responsible for chasing those foreclosures, and kind of going back to what you said as far as time is money, and that if this is something where we service our clients is just providing the time. Because if you want to look at how many foreclosures that we have to look at, approximately it is about 50 a week get posted. Now, not all 50 we get to evaluate or even look at. Not all 50 even make it to go to the foreclosure. But if you want to look at the cost and your lowest entry point on purchasing real estate, it is foreclosed properties. It is going to the courthouse step and purchasing them. But you're also going through 50. Like, we have a team. I've got a 5-person acquisitions team that is going through all of those 50 foreclosures and deciding is it in areas that we want to purchase it? What is the likelihood of it getting postponed or canceled? Because 80% of them get postponed and canceled. So you can do all of that due diligence and then it never amount to anything. And so again, those are just all things that we are already doing for the investors in order to purchase. So we've got that team. And then once we've purchased that property, we also work with real estate agents who send us deals. We pay them referral fees. We've got a lot of great relationships with real estate agents. And then we work with wholesalers as well. And once we've purchased the properties, then it kind of gets handed off to our construction team. Now, we do use outside contractors and licensed home builders to renovate the properties, but we have our internal construction supervisors that are there on site giving updates and making sure that what is on the scope of work is what is completed, et cetera, et cetera. And then kind of once it's done from that, it goes to our internal sales team, where if you're interested in learning more about the properties, you're talking to an internal sales rep, one of our wealth management strategists, and we're going to walk you through, hey, this property, this neighborhood, I like it because of this reason, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, we're all in-house, and we're all employees that are all in the same. I'm blanking on the word, maybe wavelength or goal.
Yeah.
The words escape me, but you know what I mean?
Well, I love the philosophy. I mean, I will tell you, I mean, there's an old saying, the teamwork makes the dream work. And when you have a centrally run organization, you just have more influence. You have more input.
You do.
You're more in touch. And
it's more of a quality control as well. I mean, we're just able to control a lot more of the variables throughout the entire process.
Yeah. Well, let's if we could do like a case study. I mean, you can even use a real life client if you want to just change the name or something. But what would be the life cycle? Let's say somebody's listening to this and they're up in New York and they're like, yeah, you know what, Gary, I'm just tired of New York City. They just get clocked. This is sad to say, but in New York City, if you own a rental and you're going to sell it and the tenant doesn't move, there's nothing you can do. It'll kill the deal. It's just insane. I mean, I know I'm going to pick some people off here, but let's face it, the owner has a lot more risk than a tenant.
Yeah.
They have the right to be able to sell their stinking house if they want to. And I've seen this happen multiple times. Like, why would anybody? I know I'm going to get some bad mail on this one, just hate mail, but it's just a fact of life. I need to be honest with people, right? So when you come down to where you are, you have the strong ownership rights. But what would that life cycle look like, or transaction cycle, from someone calling you from out of state? Oh, side note, when people invest with you from other countries too, like if they're in Europe or awesome. Okay, this is getting even better. So take us through. Let's put down like a fictitious customer, and I call you up, and Lindsay, I really want to invest down there. I hear good things about it. I know there's lots of growth for the foreseeable future. How do I get started? What's the first step?
Yeah. So if you are interested and you kind of want to look at what the whole process might look like I said earlier, our entire company is structured around handling every piece of the puzzle, and that our main client is that who is an accountant in California that's like, hey, I want to diversify my rental or my retirement, and I'm interested in investing in real estate. So that's why they're coming to us. So then you're going to be put in contact with, like I said, one of our wealth advisors, and they're going to kind of go through all of our inventory. Now we have pro formas on all of our properties that says the purchase price and rent. Our average rents are around $13.50. Now this is for renovated properties. This isn't for new construction. Those are the price points are pretty different. So I don't want to take the averages between those two because that would be inflated on the renovation side. But on our renovated properties, our average sales price is $165,000. Now that also includes our forward commitment buy down. So just so your listeners know that we do buy down the interest rates. We do it in bulk like home builders, and we're putting it up front. So we're assuming the risk, and we usually buy about $1 million to $2 million at a time. So we're able to drive down that interest rate to 5.5%. And that's 30 years. It's not an ARM. It's not inflated. Like when interest rates were going up, I spent so much time telling people this is not fake and putting them in touch with lenders. It is just, it's the same thing that your D.R. Horton and all of these other builders are doing. They've been buying down rates for decades and decades. So we're doing the exact same thing for our clients. So that's about the $165,000 sales price. So that's you've got our pro forma, and you've got pictures, you've got square footage, you got basic characteristics, property taxes, insurance, etc. And then so if you decide to move forward with 123 Main Street, and that's the property that you want to purchase. Well, if you are financing the house, which majority of our clients choose to do, then we'll get you in touch with a lender. You'll put the property under contract just like you would any other real estate transaction, and we'll get you in touch with our lender. And so your financing communication, that's really the only thing that's kind of a third party. Now you'll work with them closely to make sure that they have all of the information needed. But on our end, it moves from our sales team to then our closing coordinator. And this is also another added level of service in that person is going to be your point of contact and is going to handle all of the communication with all of the different parties. I mean, you think about when you purchased your property to move into, you had to do your home inspection, then you had to negotiate the home inspection repairs, and you had to get an appraisal, and then you had to get the appraiser out there. Well, a lot of times these properties, they're rental properties. A lot of times they're already cash flowing and occupied. So now you've got to work with the tenant to get the appraiser into the property so it can be properly appraised. They're handling everything. They're letting you know, hey, you got a home inspection. Now, we're doing a home inspection. We have a third-party company that does the home inspection. We check ourselves as well. The investor can choose to use our home inspection and reimburse us. Like I said, it is a third party. It is not an internal home inspection. But if you do not want to, if you want to go with your own, our closing coordinator will still coordinate that for you. They'll coordinate with the tenant, your lender, your closing attorney, title, all of that, and make sure that everybody's on the same page to get you to the closing table on your contract date. And so we're handling all of the pieces there. Once you've closed the property, it's usually about a 30-day cycle. You're putting 20 to 25% down. And so once you've closed that property, that's when you get passed to our investor relations team. That team is responsible for updating you on all of your property management, issues, updates, anything that's going on with the property through the management process. I can't stress this enough. That is the most important part. I can talk for hours about all the things we do to evaluate the properties and everything we're doing on the renovation side. Those are very important, but the long-term success of your property is based on the team that you put over the management. And so they're the ones that are going to be responsible for placing the tenant, making sure the tenant is properly vetted, making sure that you're compliant with fair housing. We have seen that change a lot. I think with the economy, inflation, and cost of living going up, a lot of times investors want more control. They say, I want to pick my own tenant. It's like, hey, that could be a potential fair housing violation. And not only did they come after the property management, they would come after the owner. So, you want the people, experts managing your asset long term. They're going to, so our investor relations team, they're going to inform you about everything that's happening. Hey, we got a security deposit on your property. They're signing their lease on this date. Or, hey, Mr. Investor, your tenant's child accidentally flushed a toy down the toilet and we had to send a plumber out there. So it's going to be $250 or whatever it is. But they're going to be your point of contact throughout the entire process.
Okay. Well, I love it. So
that was very long-winded. I'm so sorry. But, I was just...
No. That's exactly what I wanted. I hope everybody was paying attention. And by the way, all the listeners, you can obviously replay this if you're going to be listening to it in recorded mode anyways. But you can replay it and start and stop it at strategic points and take notes, because what Lindsay just gave you guys was exactly what you need to hear to make the decisions with your investable dollars. So it's really, really important. And that whole thing about the tenants, I'm telling you, the old saying, you can have the best plan in the world, the most noble goal, but success is either achieved or not achieved at the level of execution. It's at the execution level where we win or we lose. And what you just described, they're dealing with the tenants and the property management. That's how you execute properly. And you have to be patient. This is not a get rich quick overnight thing. This is absolutely get rich over a long period of time. I'm telling you. And do it. I can tell you know what you're doing, Lindsay, and I really appreciate that. So what? A couple more. I know we're going to run short on. I knew this was going to happen. We're going to run short. We'll have you back, but I'm going to have to invite you to teach a Monday Night Live class too. But
that would be great.
When we were talking about the team members, I know you mentioned this before the podcast. Do you have your own inside like licensed agents, or do you ever use licensed agents on the outside who might be up in Madison or Huntsville and you're down in Birmingham? I mean, how can they play a role? Because we've got a lot of those guys listening. I'm sure they're just wondering how can I be a part of this,
So we have on the acquisitions, on the purchase side, we have a lot of relationships with real estate agents that they will bring us deals. They'll bring us properties that maybe REO, or they just know that the owner is like, hey, they need to sell very quickly. And so in those type scenarios, we can be really efficient in helping get that property to the closing table. We're having to do our due diligence as well. So we do an inspection, of course, title, policy. But as soon as all that clears, hey, we're able to close cash. And so that is a big piece of our relationship with real estate agents. But then another really big piece is our referral program. And what we do with a lot of real estate agents is that what we find is a lot of people are interested in investing in Alabama, in our states, and may not know that there are options like Spartan Invest out there, that there is a full service turnkey company, because it is relatively new-ish. I would say in the last 20 years, it's not known by everyone, but. And so there's a lot of investors that will reach out to real estate agents and like, hey, I want you to find me a rental property. I want to find a 3-2 and I want to be able to rent it for $1,500. And I want it to be in this zip code. And so the agent will go down that rabbit hole with the investor, and then they'll do the home inspection. And then what ends up happening, or the feedback that I've received from a lot of real estate agents, is that they then morph into kind of a project manager, to where they're like, hey, can you go by and make sure that the repairs are complete? And so once the property's closed, it's like, hey, can you help me find a contractor? Can you help me? Because there's a lot of people out there. It's like, hey, you need to build your team. And so what ends up happening is that the real estate agent is now kind of overseeing what that looks like. And if you have that type of relationship with that particular investor, then by all means, yes, please, but that is not what the normal commission entails.
Right.
Your normal 2.5% to 3% or 2% to 3% commission does not include the oversight and management of that project to get it through the renovation process. And so that's where real estate agents see a lot of value with us, is because we will pay them a referral commission if they just send that investor to us. And it's like, hey, look, I don't do that, but I know this company. They've got a great reputation. They've been in business for 15 years, et cetera, et cetera. And they'll pass them to us. then if they close, then we pay them the referral, and they don't have to do anything, and they're still able to make money without having to go back and forth with all of the, with the contracts, repair contracts, et cetera, et cetera. So that is a really big piece that we've seen over the last couple of years of growth in our partnerships with real estate agents.
Yeah. Well, now I know why we were brought together, because my team, obviously, the global investor agent team, I'm an investor first. I was an investor for 20 years before I got my license. And, I teach, the whole premise was teaching the agents how to invest and how to work with investors. And that's now we're in 38 states. So maybe we can help you grow in some other juicy markets, Like
no, that would be fantastic. Yes, absolutely.
I still haven't cracked the proposal for Mississippi. I'm like, what did I'm not going to say anything negative or positive, because I've been down there teaching, but it's just not the same as Alabama. It's just not, So it's just different. But in any case, I know we're over time, but I want to do one more thing here. You talked about agent consumers, investors working with agents, and you're right. Not every agent is alike, and very few of them are actually trained and certified, and I know it because I'm the guy that teaches them,
Right.
So I know who they are, I know who they're not. But when it comes to what investors are hearing, new investors, the myths, like what are one or two or three myths that you can help bust for us other fellow gurus like yourself? I hate to call ourselves gurus, but that's what they call us, We've done it a lot more than they have, so we know more from experience, And I've got the scars to prove it too.
That's fair. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. You've been in the business a long time. You're definitely a guru. Oh, yeah. But there's several myths. You've already touched on one where it is not a get rich quick scheme. And I don't necessarily know that you want it to be. And if you are looking for longevity and you're looking for real wealth and growth in your portfolio and your asset worth, you're going to want to target markets that are steady, and that you're not going to see Alabama appreciate 40% in a year. It's just not going to happen. You might see that, like you said, with a California purchase, but you're not ever going to see that with Alabama. But what you are going to see is consistent 2 to 3%. You're not going to see the drastic dips when the market does take a turn, like you've seen in a lot of other markets over the last couple of years, and that they have been hurting the markets that just saw this just huge boom. Alabama saw a small one, but we have not seen a dip. We have not seen a step back. And so that's kind of what you want. You want that slow, steady, but it is not a get rich quick scheme. And if somebody is out there telling you that, hey, you can buy this property right now and not do anything to it and sit on it for 2 years and then turn around and sell it at a profit, don't do it, especially if you're in some of these markets that are meant for the longevity. Please take into consideration a lot of other factors on what your expenses would be, what your overall take-home profit would be. Another myth, and again, it is something that you brought up, but I think it is really important. What people don't realize is I'll just do it on the side, and that your time is worth. So if you were to assign a value to your time, what is an hour worth to you? It is a great way to actually evaluate a deal. I deal with a lot of investors, and I know a lot of investors that, hey, I just want to do it on my own. I'll just manage it myself, or I don't want to buy with a turnkey because it's market value. So I'm going to buy off market, and then I'm going to renovate it and I'm going to manage it. So if you add a dollar amount to your time, whatever it's worth, what you think your time is, $15, $18, $20, $30, whatever it is, I can promise you are going to spend 10 times more money on doing it yourself. Then also, if you are using a HELOC or whatever you were using to fund, you're having to purchase the property, use those funds, you're paying interest on non-cash flowing asset right now. So you are negative out of pocket. You've got to take all of those small things into consideration when you are truly evaluating what path to go down. And so I think that's a really big misconception, is that it's no, I don't want to buy already renovated. I can do it cheaper. And it is very rare that very well may be the case. Sometimes you have to factor in, if you're not using a real estate agent that you've partnered with that's helping you do that, or if you're not using a turnkey company, it's it's going to be really challenging to be able to make those numbers actually work. And I mean, like I said, there's a lot of misconceptions there, but those are two of the biggest ones, I think.
Yeah, I agree 100%. It's just like anything in life, you know, anything that's really worthy and worthwhile is probably going to be a lot to it. You don't nobody can just go and invest in the stock market and start making, 30% returns on the money, millions of dollars. Maybe 1 in 10,000 people can do that. And they've probably been at it for a long time and had a lot of training. So just like and the same thing in real estate, guys, there is a lot to it. And I'm not here to burst anybody's bubble. I'm just being honest with you. You can learn on your own like I did and get a lot of gray hair and a lot of battle wounds, or you can team up with somebody like, so Lindsay, so you mentioned Spartan. Is there, if you don't mind sharing, what's, the website, contact information, where can people go and check you out and learn more,
Yeah, so we have a lot of information on our website. It is spartaninvest.com. Mm-hmm. My email address, if anyone's interested and wants to reach out to me directly, is just ldavis@spartaninvest. And there's market reports on our website. There's our investor guide that will detail out all of our processes, everything that we're doing throughout this every stage that your property would go through. We also have a podcast. It's called On the House with Spartan Invest. And this podcast is meant to purely educate as well. And it is full of, if you want to know, how we vet tenants. There's several episodes on exactly what we're looking at, what we take into consideration, what we don't take into consideration. If you want to know, hey, what does the eviction process look like? Like, if I'm just curious, if I do wind up in eviction, or if my tenant does wind up in eviction, I have episodes about that. It is really just a audio version of all of the information that we have on our website in the first kind of few segments that will help you if you just want to learn more while you're riding in the car or anything like that. Yeah. So check us out at spartaninvest.com or On the House with Spartan Invest.
Okay. I love it. I love the whole concept of the podcast, and I'd be honored to be a guest. And
that would be great. We'd love to have you.
We could call it maybe story time. Like I always thought, I'm going to write a book on all the crazy things that the tenants have done over the years to the properties, and to make it fun, not make fun of people, but make it fun, because I'm usually the one that was like, I should have known better, that kind of thing. So,
it's so funny. We've said that same thing. I've said that same thing, that we're like, oh yeah, well, we could have a reality show about the craziest things that we've heard from tenants and stuff. And I'm like, I think that's why we have a job, right? Is to keep that from our clients, to keep that crazy in. But we definitely have heard and seen it all.
Awesome. So guys, I'm going to recap this. So if you're driving, don't write it down. It'll be in the show notes. But the podcast is On the House, okay? And the website is spartaninvest.com. And Lindsay was gracious enough to give you her own personal email, ldavis, DAVIS, ldavis @spartaninvest.com. So guys, check it out. I just call up and have a conversation. I'm telling you, compare it to what you're already doing today and ask yourself what's better. When I compare time versus money, right? If you can earn a percent that might be less than what you believe you can earn on your own, and yet take you a fraction of the time that you can use to do other things that you really do enjoy, maybe learn some other investing. My gosh, you owe it to yourself to do it. That's part of being older and wiser. And I don't care if you're 20s and 30s. There's never too young to start gaining some wisdom. I'm telling you. If I knew back then what I knew now, I might have done things differently, because I was in the weeds a lot, working my butt off. I mean, it worked. It got me where I am today. But what it did, I'll wrap this up with this. The real estate actually ended up being a foundation upon which I launched other things that I really did enjoy, like the coaching and training. And I just converted that to a team. I love being in the heat of, I love the thrill of the hunt. I like finding good deals. And with my team, I get to experience that, but I'm not going to closings. I'm not opening doors, not doing that kind of stuff. They get all the good stuff. But it all started by doing what Lindsay's talking about doing. You just get a white glove concierge service with Spartan Invest that I didn't have. and you can accomplish your goals a lot more quickly. I can tell you that. So everybody listen, I know this went long, but I hope you got a lot out of it. I appreciate you listening and participating. Lindsay, I appreciate you for participating and sharing so much gold with everybody. And to everybody, God bless you and all your loved ones, and we will see you on the next Massive Passive Cash Flow podcast.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Massive Passive Cash Flow. Be sure to go to realestatewithgarywilson.com to join our community and start building wealth today.